Hi there, good evening. Tonight I'm going to talk about one of the politicians I dislike the most, and that's saying a lot because there are a lot of politicians out there that are deserving to be disliked a lot. Well, I'm going to talk about the politician in the Western world powers, and his name is Justin Trudeau. Supposedly, he's invited the People's Liberation Army, the army of the Chinese Communist Party, over for joint military training. That is an abhorrent story. Um, the thing is, supposedly it was called off, yada, 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 or it wasn't a real story, something like that. But the thing is, as grotesque a story as that is, that actually has been going on for a long time anyway. Representatives from that part of the world have been coming over to Western powers and holding drills, training, you name it, anyway. From before Harper to all of them. And, you know, that really is not the problem. Although it is, as I said, an abhorrent story. The problem is that's a way of saying something which sort of puts the seeds of what they're really doing into people's heads without them actually knowing what's going on if they don't know how to think. What Justin Trudeau is really doing, and he's not as clever as he thinks at disguising his desires on how world politics should go, is that he wants to smooth things over with Chinese Communist Party China. This cannot be done. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Um, Not happy about it. Really angry about it, actually. Justin Trudeau, there's actually a movie that is a total metaphor of the whole thing he is, and that is called Team America World Peace. Um, the World Police, I should say. Um, that's the marionette movie made from the guys from South Park. Justin Trudeau is obsessed with no all out war in the world, and he will not accept any outcome that avoids this. The problem is the Chinese Communist Party wants this, and the only reason they're not pursuing it now is because they're not confident they can win. One day they may be confident that they can win. Justin Trudeau and other people like-minded as him have been caught with their pants down before. And that is exactly what the PLA is waiting for. An example in more recent events would be when uh, the aircraft entering or leaving Iranian airspace. I think it was a Turkish one or whatever. I made a video about it. It's not that big a story. Supposedly, a bunch of Canadians, most of them would have been of Iranian descent, were on that plane, and a missile accidentally shot them down. Yeah, nobody believes that. Um, that was a failure by the Trudeau administration. Justin Trudeau should have banned outright any planes from that part of the world immediately from going anywhere near Canada. It would not have made them a viable target, and less likely the Iranian military would have struck them down. They did so in retaliation to Donald Trump assassinating an Iranian general who, quite honestly, had it coming. And it was a clean, smooth operation. He was in the wrong place, and he got what he deserved. Don't ask me to say his name because I forgot it. It's a long, complicated name. It's not what I'm used to thinking of. And, there are things to consider about what Justin Trudeau is prepared to do to smooth things over with the Chinese Communist Party. China is plagued with problems, and they have been since day one, but they are especially now because there's a giant food crunch. That's one of their problems. And we're being told that food prices are going to increase. We're always told that. The country of China has lost 50% of its pork products, and that's if you believe those statistics. To be perfectly honest, it could be higher than that. It probably is. And what little pork they do have has antibiotics, chemicals, you name it, in them that have been banned by the WHO for probably 30 years. So it's not quality pork anyway, not Canadian pork. However, would Justin Trudeau sell that for, I don't know, 100 boatloads filled with iPhone 12s that we don't need? Yeah, I think he probably would, because he's a little rat. Just like all the rats in Wall Street. They don't clamor to that idea. They don't care if the Western powers go into a steep decline, as long as they line their pockets, because they don't think ahead. And yes, I know an outright war with China is risky, because there's a lot of horrors that go with war. I mean, this coronavirus, COVID, is a prime example. And trust me, an undiluted specimen of COVID would be enough to kill an elephant if an elephant were 100 times the size it is. So, that's something to think about. However, it would eliminate a serious enemy, and one that isn't going away. One you can't talk down. One that is determined to take what is ours. And, there's a lot of glory to be had. And, it's not the easiest thing to say, yeah, let's go to, have a nice giant war with China. A lot of people don't want to hear it. A lot of people are not mentally prepared to understand the concept of it. I mean, you take little things like what's going on in Hong Kong and how China basically annexed their territory back, and it is now going to be subsequently brought into China's direct laws and regulations and rules. And more than likely going to be punished for the century of somewhat prosperity over, when I say prosperity, I mean more so than other parts of China. And, that punishment could go on for hundreds of years, because that's how the Chinese Communist Party thinks. And as I said before, a lot of the Hong Kongers that made a lot of money were actually quite despicable people. They were just the middlemen to big business, and they sold the sweat and blood of their fellow countrymen so that they could make a buck. So they're not exactly good people anyway. I mean, there are some people that, are modicumly well off and, didn't do anything too severe, and, they're going to get punished too over there. And there are supposedly 300,000 Canadians over there. That number could be higher, could be lower. Who knows? They don't tell us the truth about anything. Most of them are not going to be Caucasian. Most of them, probably don't even speak English. And they will be the ones that might be having new people to commingle with in the concentration camps they have over there by the name of the Falun Gong practitioners and the Uyghurs. They might be joining them. And that would be bad for the Canadian image if so-called Canadian citizens were put into concentration camps. That would definitely be the next stage of an actual all-out war with China. And like, even if you don't like, uh, let's say as a hypothetical, you don't like the Caucasian people that live in Hong Kong for whatever reason. Maybe because they're a bunch of money grubbing bastards who, they're just despicable people. Um, their image in a concentration camp is demoralizing for the world. So there already is big time internet censorship. We don't see that sort of stuff, and you probably don't want to either. Um, but it is a fact of life that there are people out there that are in horrible situations. And, I believe in resolving the problem on a more permanent basis rather than ignoring it and allowing it to fester. Because, as I said, it's not going away. It doesn't matter how nice Justin Trudeau is, and he can get on all fours and kiss the shoes of Xi Jinping. It won't make any damn difference. They're still in the philosophy that they want to conquer the world, specifically North America, because we have the best growing capacity. We have the best agricultural capacity. We have the most networks as far as getting produce and other products from around the world. China doesn't have those capabilities, and the only places they can get those are from people that strictly hate Western powers. Whether it's through American mingling over the decades and centuries, even though that wouldn't be entirely accurate. Don't tell me there aren't Canadian generals that don't jump on board when the U.S. goes and does military stuff, because that's bullshit. Canada, like Justin Trudeau, can go up there and go, we will not be involved, like Jean Chrétien said he wouldn't get into Iraq. He can go ahead and do that and turn around and send his generals over there as advisors and just not tell anybody. Slap them in American uniforms. Who would know the difference? But that would be disruptive of the image that Canada is a peaceful country that never gets involved in the politics of other countries other than politely asking them not to do that. And it's the bully America that always does it. No. Generals covertly from Canada go into American military campaigns and do the same thing. The border doesn't mean squat to them. So, those are some facts, and you're not going to find a link on them on the internet. You're not going to find a news article about them because we do live in a heavily censored world. And even speaking of such things, some people would go, well, if you're in a position to make a decision like that affects so many people, then maybe you should taste a bit of your own medicine there. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense. It's an opinion, and I'm implying logic. And I like to think I don't have a biased opinion. I try to be reasonable about things. But, when you're talking about an institution that is not reasonable, has no intention of ever being reasonable, and wishes ill upon us, then what can you do? What can you do? I can go on and on and on about these topics because I've mentioned a few ones here real quick, and they're worthy of videos of their own. Let alone, a 15-minute video as an overview of these particular topics. Yeah, and this seems to be the fork in the road for the Western powers' politics. Most specifically in North America. There's what some people would call the left. I don't know what perversion of what the left used to be has morphed into. And then there's the right. Now, I don't agree with a lot of the things the right thinks because quite frankly, they're crazy. But the left is also capable of being very crazy. That's the way it is. And you got to drain the swamp on a few certain people in power because they got bent, corrupt, weaselly little opinions, and Joe Biden happens to be among them. And of that couple of Justin Trudeau and Joe Biden, I think Justin Trudeau has the edge on Biden. And what he says is what will go, and that won't be good for the United States. A lot of people say, well, if Trump becomes president, that it would be bad for Canada. I don't know if I entirely agree with that necessarily. It would be bad. It would be catastrophic for Trudeau. Now that's different. I don't like that guy. I dislike him. I hate him. I despise him for what he does. Sugarcoating the world and himself into this thing that doesn't exist. It's sickening. Very, very sickening. And it leaves the people vulnerable to dangers they don't even know exist. Or should know they exist, but some people do know they exist. And, it's most certainly an unsettling, unnerving thing. Look, you can either take the bandage off slowly and awkwardly, or you can just rip that sumbitch right off. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. Because the Chinese Communist Party, you know what they're like? They're the bully that you're buying marijuana off of, that every time you deal with them, they bring a machete and a rope. One of those days, you have to accept that they're probably going to pull something the moment they get the opportunity to. And I wouldn't do business with somebody like that. And as a government entity, I think it is a responsible thing not to deal with an entity that would deal with something like that. And Justin Trudeau, with all his sanctimonious preaching, has overlooked that very obvious fact. And yes, maybe it was Republicans that went over to China and made these crooked business deals to begin with, but that is in the past. Most of those Republicans are long since dead. And then the ones that aren't, drain the swamp, sort of whittle them out, and move forward in a plan that is most logical for the prosperity of the Western powers. Because the consequences of inaction and then failure to understand and have the foresight to know when the Chinese Communist Party will act, and it will one day, is the greatest danger in the world. And Canadians, they're a bunch of stumble-bum, slack-ass idiots. They don't know shit, most of them. And they will get their opportunity one day if somebody doesn't say, fuck you, you're not doing it. And as I said, no apology is good enough. Not for them, anyway. So, yeah, talk to you people later. Have a good one. And if you got a stupid opinion, feel free to leave a comment. I might delete it. I might say fuck you to you. I don't know. I'll think about it. Anyway.